Chuck Todd is NBC's political director and moderator of Meet the Press. Katy also with us this morning. She's the author of the best-selling new book about her time covering the Trump campaign. It's called Unbelievable, My Front Row Seat to the Craziest Campaign in American History. Katy, good morning. Chuck, good to see you. Congrats on the bestseller list, my friend.
Thank you very much. Yeah, right on.
So Chuck, let's dig into this a little bit. I think there's no point anymore in trying to decipher a strategy when the president tweets the way he does. He's reacting. He sees someone criticizing him on TV, even if it's the mayor of a desperate city, and he has to attack back. But he's trying to wrestle back the narrative. Is he having any success in doing that?
No, I don't think he will. I mean, maybe he's giving talking points to people that support him and that will support what he says or does. I think he did irreparable harm in the Puerto Rican community. And whether that means the island of Puerto Rico, whether that means Florida, New York, Chicago, where there are large populations of Puerto Ricans, I think this is something that will not be forgotten for a very long time. That said, he does have an opportunity on Tuesday to at least try to start over. And while I think that he may not get a lot of benefit of the doubt, he has no choice but to sort of ramp things up. The fact is, he was so concerned about optics when it came to Irma and Harvey in Florida and Texas. He almost went down there too soon in both cases. For some reason, he has not had the same focus on this storm, and that has caused a lot of problems for him politically. We'll see how he handles Tuesday. I would like to think it'll go better than yesterday went, but he's got some work to do.
So, Katy, between the president's tweets and retweets, there were 25 or so about Puerto Rico just yesterday. As he was defending the federal response, his press shop was out working everybody, showing the timeline of events and everything they've done. You write a little bit about this in Unbelievable in your book, which is how these moments come to be. In other words, the president is in Bedminster at his golf club right now. General Kelly was supposed to be this great controller, this great filter. How does this happen? I mean, it wouldn't happen under a normal presidency, but how does this happen?
You have to question whether it matters who is with Donald Trump at any given moment. When he's alone, when he has the time, when he's watching television, that's when we see him tweet. We see this every day. You're on Morning Joe, Willie. You know when he's watching the show because he'll tweet something in response to what you're saying on that show. It's notable that the Puerto Rican disaster was not on the top of his mind last weekend and early into last week. It wasn't until he started seeing it on television, when it was covered every single day, when it popped back up, when there were questions about the federal government response, that he started to tweet about it again, then started to fight back about it. Last week was a remarkable week, and I just want to run through the things that happened. Not only was he fighting with the NFL, but Luther Strange, the candidate he endorsed, lost the primary. Price, his cabinet secretary, resigned after all that controversy over his airfare. Repealing Obamacare fails again. The tax plan comes out, and it's not met with universal support. There's a big question about who it's actually going to benefit. And then he goes on the attack at Puerto Rico again. But he's not just saying, hey, we're doing our jobs. He's saying the mayor of Puerto Rico is lying. The TV networks are lying. What you're seeing on your television, you can't trust. And let that sit with you. You can't trust what you are seeing with your own eyes. The question has to become, who is Donald Trump more concerned about, the people of Puerto Rico or his own self-image?
The problem, Chuck, with that argument is we just had Tammy Leitner, who's been in San Juan for weeks now, saying that fewer than 6% of Puerto Ricans have water. There are facts on the ground. There are things that are not happening and getting done on the ground. He even tweeted yesterday about Luther Strange. You mentioned Luther Strange, just out of the clear blue sky. As if to go back and right every wrong that he believes has been perpetuated upon him lately.
Right. I mean, he's angry about the Luther Strange thing because he's not getting enough credit for making him competitive, I guess. Right. On that front. Again, obviously, and it is a pattern. Everything revolves around him as far as he's concerned. When the mayor of San Juan is saying we're desperate here, this isn't a good news story, he sees it as an attack on himself, not a mayor of a desperate city trying to shake the mainland by the lapels. And he's never going to be a successful president that somehow can unite this country if every single criticism that goes the White House's way he takes personally. And, maybe he'll never change, but that's ultimately the problem. He takes it all personally, and this is what we get.
And that's the pattern we saw on the campaign trail. And what was surprising to me when I wrote this book was seeing that day in and day out. Ultimately, everything turned back to how it affected Donald Trump, how it made Donald Trump look, and whether or not he would benefit from a certain thing.
Katy, thank you very much. Chuck, thank you. We'll be looking for more on Meet the Press, which once again we want to point at is the #1 Sunday morning political show. Congratulations on that, Chuck. Katy's must-read bestseller again is called Unbelievable. Right up near the top of the list again, just ahead of Gucci Mane's autobiography. Well done. Katy, thank you very much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.